Welcome to Weight Loss and Wellness for Real, the podcast where people like you get the practical solutions and support you need to permanently lose the physical and mental weight so you can feel better and live the life you want in the body and mind you want. If you're looking to overcome your stress eating, overeating, binging behaviors, and move to a place of freedom with food and your body, you're in the right place. I want to talk a little bit about the framework I use as a foundation to help clients make true lasting change, as well as what I use for myself when I want to make changes. And so it starts with the idea that all behavior is born from belief. So we have a belief system in place that typically is programmed in childhood, but can also come out of a traumatic event or just slightly a highly emotional event in our lives. And once our subconscious holds that belief, we create our identity around that. And once our identity is in place, our brain works to make that identity reality through the thoughts it populates in our brain. And once we have a thought, there is always a feeling. And with that feeling comes basically a chemical cocktail that creates sensations in our bodies. And from feeling and sensation, we often behave or we do something, we act in a way. So I want you to think of this example. You tell a child every day that they're worthless, no good, stupid. And I want you to think for a moment what the belief of that child is after just a couple of months or even a couple of weeks, a couple of days. It is probably something like, I am not good, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. And now this becomes a child's identity. And once the brain is locked in on that identity piece, it then generates thoughts that proves that identity true. So throughout their entire life, this child well into adulthood is going to have what I call that critic sitting on his or her shoulder most days, all day, constantly criticizing what they are doing. And so this critic that sits on the shoulder is basically, giving that same message over and over to now that adult of, you're no good, you're not worthy. And actually the brain will look for things to happen within life that prove that true. So that person's attention automatically goes into places where, it proves that they're not worthy, that they're not good. And then again, that creates that cycle. More feelings of anxiousness then, because they're having these thoughts. So more feelings of anxiousness and depression, unworthiness. And then when that person experiences those feelings, they behave in ways that continue to promote the belief identity. So now they do these things that perpetuate the identity cycle of unworthiness. So things like overeating, overdrinking, we check out of relationships, we stonewall in relationships, we don't engage, we become less social. So I hope you get the idea here. You've got belief, identity, thoughts, feelings, actions, or behaviors. And then from those actions and behaviors, we really gain more thoughts of the same. So it goes in this whole cycle. And once you understand that cycle, you can begin to understand how change can happen through thought work. Because if you hop in to that thought part of the cycle and change the thought or figure, and it's not like thinking positive, it's more like learning. I mean, there's true skills to learn that you can practice that start to shift what thoughts pop up in your head automatically. You start to learn to be able to put your attention into places and direct your own thinking patterns to then create different feelings, which then create different behaviors. So really being able to do this allows you to not white knuckle and not use willpower when you're trying to make changes. The formula allows you to make changes from willingness and momentum, and it's so much easier. I hope you are finding something useful from these episodes and this podcast? And if so, please share it with someone else in your life you feel it could benefit. This podcast is also now monetized. So if you really feel you are getting a lot from it and want to help keep it going, please go to the episode show notes. You can just scroll down from wherever you're listening. You'll see a description of the episode, and then you will see it says support this podcast. And then there's a link you can click on. You can click on that link, and that's where you can support the podcast. Even the smallest donation, like 99 cents, helps to keep me producing the podcast. And to those of you who have donated, I really, really appreciate the support. I really do appreciate all of you listening and sharing the space with me. Again, just very thankful for all of you. Okay, so now that you have the foundational framework, we can move into a simpler cycle for now to create change. And this is part of the cycle called the Think, Feel, Act cycle. We've simply removed belief and identity just for now from the cycle. It's still really important to understand those things. Belief and identity are part of the cycle, but when creating change, it's really best to simplify. And so we're focused on simply the think, feel, act, or behavior part. And I'm using act and behavior and do interchangeably here. So understanding the think, feel, act cycle is the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy. And acceptance and commitment therapy theories also weave a lot of this into it. And this is something I've been using for 20 some years within therapy. These are theories that have the best proven outcomes around them. And so this is nothing new. This is something that's been around for a while. It's a little new for me to apply it to weight loss. I've been doing that for about the last 7 years, but it is a model that's been around. It's a model that's been used to ultimately change behaviors. And it's based in science on how the brain works and can basically be summed up like this. You think a thought, the thought creates a feeling, which remember has an attached chemical cocktail that creates sensations in your body. And based on these feelings and sensations, you act or behave in a particular way. The action or behavior then leads to another thought, and the cycle continues. So here's an example of using the model with overeating. Here's the thought. I am so fat, I have no control over food. I constantly do the wrong thing. I'm not good enough. The feelings then come: unworthy, defeated, exhausted, depressed, insecure, lonely, helpless. Then the action or behavior: eating to distract and gain momentary relief from the mental beatdown and terrible feelings I'm giving myself. Then from that action and behavior, you get this new thought: I just overate, and that just proves what a weak person I am. I have no control over food. I'm not good enough. The feeling experienced is then shame. The action or behavior is then eat to distract and gain momentary relief from feeling of shame. And the cycle just goes on. And this is that vicious downward cycle that traps people in that place of they know they want to make changes. They really, really want to change. And they just can't make themselves do the things they know they do to change. This is what's happening. It's all within our thoughts. So the beauty of the think, feel, act cycle is that it gives us the power to change our behaviors to create the life we really, really want to live in the body we really want to live in. So we can interrupt the cycle in the think stage or in the act stage to begin to create change for ourselves. And today, we're just going to focus on the thought stage. I get into different stages of how to intervene. Actually, you can even intervene in the feeling stage, but that's a lot deeper work. And this is just sort of giving that outline of the framework. So we're going to stick with the thought part of the cycle and how to intervene there. So here's an example of beginning to shift thoughts to change the cycle. So here's the new thought: I am willing and open to work on gaining more control over my food urges. Here's the feeling now: interested, curious, kind to myself, at ease, determined. Here's the action or behavior from those feelings: paying closer attention to fullness signals, stopping overeating sooner, journaling, and more motivation to continue on in my health journey even when an overeat occurs. From that action or behavior, I have a new thought. I'm figuring this out. Look how I have lessened my overeats throughout this week. I'm not perfect, but I'm not shaming myself when I make a mistake. Now the feeling I'm generating is willing, maybe even enthusiastic, again, determined, loving, open, relief, accepting. And my actions and behaviors from those feelings are less need to find relief from negative self-talk, so less overeating. More energy to do other things that are enjoyable. Healthier interactions with family members, and the cycle continues. So now you are creating a cycle that's sort of upward in momentum. You're creating willingness, you're creating momentum, you're creating more and more positive behavioral changes. Okay, so this is going to be your to-do action for the week. I want you to notice one thought you have that is not useful for you. Write it down. Write down how you feel when you think that thought. You need to name the feeling. Write down what typical actions of behavior usually occur when you feel that feeling. Now write down a little bit different thought that you can at least somewhat believe, or write down a sentence that a loved one thinks about you. So I want a thought that it is at least a tiny bit useful towards your goals. Write down the feeling you have when you think that new thought. Write down what action or behavior might more likely occur when you experience that feeling. And this doesn't necessarily need to be about food or weight, etc. Now, it can really be about anything within your life where you're trying to make a change. Okay, so now that you have your more useful thought, write it out 5 times every morning. Get it planted into your brain. You need to practice it. Say it out loud. These things are really important. You really need to understand this is work of practice. The change comes when we implement these things daily and over time and as often as we can. But also, it's not difficult. These are pretty simple and easy things to do if you can at least remind yourself to do it or set aside time to do it. In the morning, if you're writing this sentence 5 times, it's literally going to take you, 15 seconds maybe. So this is not a lot of time away from our day in order to make some really big changes for ourselves. Okay, one other thing, I talked about I gave examples of this earlier, but many people immediately try to jump to positive thoughts and for their new thought, and it really doesn't work if you don't believe the thought at all. So for example, you think I'm the most terrible person I know, and you try to change your more useful thought to I'm the most exciting, amazing person in the world. So yeah, it's not going to work right away. You really need to think about baby steps here for the brain. The brain needs baby steps. So more like something neutral, like I'm open and willing to thinking a different thought about myself, or I'm doing a good job working towards changing my thoughts to more useful ones. Those are going to be your up-leveled thoughts. Those are going to be the thoughts that you can latch onto and start to shift your brain into thinking in a different way, which then creates new feelings, which then is going to help you with the behavior change. So learning to be aware of your thoughts and then just slightly shifting them and practicing thinking them on purpose throughout your day. Again, yes, you need to do this daily and as often as you can, and or writing them down over and over. It really does start to teach your brain how you want to be thinking. Over time, you're going to find that your habits and behaviors start to change without white knuckling, without willpower. And then I have clients who I introduce this to, and they're like, there's no way too good to be true. And I am telling you, it's not. This works, and all it takes is putting effort into some thought work, just a little bit at a time. I hope you take 1 or 2 strategies from this and actually try one for a week. Small things add up to really big changes. Thank you for sharing this space with me, for listening, and remember to thank your own self for being willing to consider making small changes in your life to get you closer to your goals and dreams. Also, head over to my social media for more resources. You can find me on Instagram at Heinen Counseling and Coaching. First name or Heinen spelled Heynen. Once you're there, feel free to DM me or comment on a post with any questions you may have about all things weight loss, wellness, optimizing health, nutrition, thought work, etc. I'm really going to try to include some questions within my future podcast episodes with my best answers to these questions. I also have a recipes only page on Instagram at Peak Protein Recipes, and Peak is spelled P-E-A-K. Peak Protein Recipes. Some of you know that I'm a huge proponent of protein for weight loss and health, and I've lived by this rule for me and my clients for almost 15 years now. And so I set up this separate Instagram page to be used by anyone looking for quick and easy high protein recipes and basically don't want to have to search around for them. So every recipe, including many desserts, are all high protein and healthier than regular versions. Hope you find it useful as you work to up your protein intake and get you on your way to your healthier you. And if you keep listening right now, you'll get some more information on how my clients take a deeper dive on these topics with me through online programs and coaching. It's where you get the actual structured lessons, worksheets, journal prompts, support, and coaching behind all this stuff I'm putting out there to lose your weight for good, improve your health, and live the life you've been dreaming about in the body you've been dreaming about. Did you know you can find a lot more help from me on my website? Go to heatherheinen.com. Heinen is spelled Heynen, and get in touch with questions on all things I offer, like online courses for overeating, weight loss, goal attainment, and also my coaching and counseling services.